I have to say, anybody in the world could have done the introduction, but we get the kissing queen. So, and unfortunately, I got sucked into it. I mean, recruited into it yesterday because nobody was in the booth yet. They were all afraid to go in, so I got grabbed in, and I hope her husband doesn't see that. Anyway, good morning, and as usual, before you get any kind of a venue going, there's always behind-the-scenes problems. Well, we had them today. I have a Mac. This is all set up for a PC. So you can imagine up till about 8 minutes ago, we didn't have a slideshow. And I have no idea if we have one now because this is as far as I've gotten on the slideshow. But anyway, thank you all for coming, and really appreciate Allison doing the introduction. Of course, she only had 12 seconds to write down some bullet points. And one of our speakers tomorrow from Veneto is also one of our clients. We met in Miami in 2014. And he has done a wonderful job of pushing VoIP into the government. And as you saw in the keynote, and I generally don't have time to attend some of these, but I like some of the statistics I saw this morning. 67% or 57% people do not have or know what the connectivity for, especially for whether it's internet or VoIP. Actually, they kind of go together. If you got internet and everybody says, well, I use Skype, that's VoIP, unless it's changed since I used it last. So here we go. Here's the agenda. Who we are. I'll expand upon Allison's wonderful introduction. But typically, you're sitting here saying, okay, I'm here. It's early. I've only had one cup of coffee. There's no coffee in the room. There's only water. What's in this for me? We're going to tell you. I'm going to give you a real-life example. I've lived through this. I now run the free PBX distro of Asterisk. And there's a way and there's a reason I got there. I'm going to show you 3 slides today of what the government is currently doing in VoIP. Now, I realize a lot of you are developers. A lot of you don't care. Some of you run small businesses. So let me ask a question. How many are resellers or developers and try to sell your apps or whatever are you selling, or rather than just strictly developing? Can I see a show of hands? Good. Everybody's been in business, and I'm taking the thunder away from one of my slides. I assume that you've all been in business longer than 2 or 3 years. That's a good thing. Are any of you selling to the government now? Kind of hard, isn't it? Unless you get subcontracting to somebody else, which I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't do that. So we've got a good number of people that have the interest of furthering the Asterisk project. And I will tell you that Veneto is the only company right now that has the full Digium product line on a GSA contract. And it was brutal to do, but I've been doing this 30 years, so I was able to get it done. As I've already told you some of it, a lot of the programs that GSA is using now in the government, anytime you want to find out, oh, I want to buy that Sony projector. So rather you either go to Amazon or eBay, which I don't believe in eBay because the prices are all over the place. Amazon gives you a good thermometer on where the pricing is, but most people go to a site called GSA Advantagegov, and that tells you what the lowest price is out in the market, because that is where many, many vendors could have it. And by the way, before I go any further, you will be able to get the slides. Hopefully you've all got a QR code reader. I will leave some cards out also, but you'll be able to scan the code and get the slides immediately. We help develop most of those systems. The government has gone paperless for doing all of the applications. People call them bids, they're not. They're really an application to get a 5-year contract. And right now there are over 70 million line items on government contracts that anything you want to find out about. Pick a product, services are separate. Pick a product, you can find out whatever you want to know. I've been doing this longer than most of the people that are now in this business have been alive. Almost 30 years. That's a lot. Recognize anybody? Dead center is Veneto. Excellent small company out of Philadelphia. I think Corey is on tomorrow at 10:35, 10:45 or something like that. I don't remember what his topic is, but I strongly suggest if you're here, you go see it. Anybody go to the gym? Even the gym here, I checked. List Industries on the bottom. They make almost all the lockers under a number of different brand names. So we'll get past that and let's get into the real world. What's in this for you? You want to know, is VoIP in the government for me? Do I bother going after any of this business? We all have relatively successful commercial businesses, but what about the other side? It's too hard. I don't know where to go. I'm doing business now. I get $2,000 orders here, $2,000 orders there. The limit is $3,000 and you can only do it so many times. We'll talk about that. Here's a real life example. This is my example, what I went through. I started with good old Ma Bell. Now, I'm old enough that when I was first doing telephone, it was only $25 a line for POTS. And then we know where it is now. What, 40, 50, could be whatever, whoever. So I decided, let me step into VoIP. So I went to Vonage. Worked beautifully, except as I continued to expand my call center in different areas, we couldn't interoffice each other. We had to actually dial the number, which put us on busy on an incoming call. So I said, next step, let's go hosted. And the largest one that has gone public, by the time we were finished, we were paying $540 a month for a phone bill for VoIP. Because we were told, and I didn't know any better, we were told that you had to have a DID for every phone set. So I started doing some investigation, and I discovered that Asterisk is underneath everything, basically. And I said, I can do this. I run my own virtual machine center. And so I installed it. Hooked up Google Voice. I said, this stuff works. It works too easily. So I fired 8x8. Oop, I wasn't supposed to say that. I fired 8x8 as my host. Went out and bought a trunk. So I went from $540 a month to under $50 a month. And our people all around the country can intercom each other. So this is exactly what the government's going through right now. They're somewhere in between the hosted and their own. Some are still using the POTS. But the good news is POTS isn't going down anytime soon. Everybody I deal with at GSA are all on VoIP. And this is the schedules division. We have the Public Building Service, we have Homeland Security. Think of an agency, any agency at all, Homeland Security, all of them. Here's the first stunning graphic. I don't know if you can, yeah, you can see it. I did a keyword search, and you might want to, these will be on the slides, but you might want to make note of the website this came from. Federal Procurement Data Service. This tracks every sale of every item in the government. You want data? You want to do, this is just page 1 of 4 pages of that particular report. Look at the 5.3 million on the first sale so far. If you go straight across, it says ceiling remaining. Does that say 13 million? 19? So that's a $25 million obligation, what's also called a blanket purchase. They've obligated $20+ million to buy, and the key word is VoIP. Dead center up top. Want to see another one? How about the keyword PBX? Same database. Obligated, 23, ceiling remaining, 22 point whatever. Is there any business in the government for what we're doing here today? One more. Oh, that's my favorite. Phones. That's the cheapest part of the whole system. 86,000 with, what's the ceiling remaining? 1 point what? 7 million? They're swapping everything out. This is where Veneto is playing this game in this market right here and making money doing it and saving the taxpayers money. If we can make money, save ourselves tax money, and help people, is that not a good thing? Anybody subcontracting now, working for a prime contractor selling to the government? Don't do it. Case in point, you have a product worth $100. You sell it for $100. I have a contract and you want to sell through my contract, you're going to have to give me a pass-through or a discount to pass you through. Usually anywhere from 10 to 30, I use 15%. So that means you're selling it to me for 85, I'm selling it to the government for 100. I'm making money just by having a contract. Guess what happens when you decide you want to go get your own contract? You have to give the government the lowest price. What's your lowest price? Not 100, it's 85. You just lost 15% across the board. Very, very narrow margin to be able to negotiate any better price with the government. How do you eliminate bidding? How many people here are bidding and losing? It's okay to say I lost. You're going to win 1 out of 10 if you're lucky. It's the same thing over and over again. I believe that's defined as insanity. How about if you could, difference between having to have cash in your pocket to pay for something or pull out a credit card? Which would you rather do? I'd rather pull out the credit card, pay the bill later. This is the same scenario. It's very easy to get. It's an application. You're not bidding against anybody. You're bidding against yourself. What is the lowest price you've charged in the last year? Not to a distributor, not to education, to end users. And the government is the largest end user. 50, 60, 70 billion dollars was the budget. I have a client in North Carolina. They don't sleep the last week. They're working 24/7 because the government agencies all around the world are trying to spend what's left of that 40% of their budget in the last week. His quarter was $250,000 selling small electrical stuff, plug sockets, light bulbs, stuff like that. That's what he does, building maintenance. $250,000 in a quarter. Pretty impressive. Contract's 5 years. Every 5 years you get a renewal to total it out to 20 years. Why do you need it? How many folks are doing business with the government now and doing those small purchase orders with $3,000 or less? There's always somebody that's got them. What happens is each buyer has an internal auditor. They come in and say, why did you give this guy 5 $3,000 orders when you could have gone out to a contract holder that has all that stuff on contract for you? There's a law, regulation, act. I still haven't figured out the difference, and I lived in DC for 33 years. It's called the Competition and Contracting Act. It says that anything over a certain threshold, which is $3,000, either has to go out to bid or you have to have somebody that has it on a existing contract. If they violate that, they'll lose their ability to make purchases. If you have a contract, I don't care what kind of contract it is, if you've already got a contract, you're processing orders against that contract. It can't be protested. I can't come in and say, I don't like the idea you gave him $1 million order. Well, he's got a contract. Already been done, settled. Final judgment. He has a contract, I can buy whatever I want from him. When you've got any kind of a contract, you're getting orders, not bids. You're going to get budgetary quotes all day long. Where do you start? If that's something like that interests you, where do you start? And I already asked the question, which kind of took the thunder from the slide, how long do you have to be in business to do business with the government long term? 3 years, 2 years, or 1 year? They're getting very strict on that because they want to see, and I'm going to answer the question, they want to see financial stability for 2 or more years. But it really depends on the contracting officer. Government has a saying that's whatever's in the government's best interest. If it's in their best interest because you have the hottest product in the world that the world doesn't really know about yet, they can bypass a lot of things and start doing business with you. But how do you legally comply with it if you don't have the hottest product? I had a guy came to me to get a contract about 5 years ago. He had been incorporated because his accountant and his attorney said, incorporate for credibility and liability. 8 months. GSA denied him. He was doing IT consulting. And I said, he's been doing this forever. I had to prove, had to have him do a write-up, had to prove that he had been doing what he was doing as an independent, and a lot of us here are independents, whether it be sole proprietor, LLC, whatever. He had been doing what he's been doing for 24 years. 30 days later, we had a contract. Is all this worth your time? That's really the major question we ask. If I'm going to go do what I'm doing now, it's really easy. I know that I make my calls on my people, whether it's phone, email, in person, visit, bring them donuts, whatever. That's easy. Now you're asking me, I've got this behemoth, monster, that you're asking me to, do I really want to deal with them? Are the numbers not enough to make everybody excited? If you're in sales, not in development, if you're in sales, wouldn't that be something you'd want to add to your bottom line? I'll let that read for itself. Statistics. I installed my own Asterisk. I could have paid you to do it for me. It probably wouldn't have cost me that much. It'd have been done right. The only problem was I don't know how to do it. I changed the oil in a boat I owned one time. 26 gallons of oil, my mistake. They wanted $1,000 to change the oil. I said, why so much? Until I did it myself. Then I realized $1,000 was cheap. The next time, I stroked a check for $1,000. Done. 85% of everybody that tries to do it themselves fails. And of that, 90%, after they get a professional involved, and that's all we do is GSA contracts. I can do research. If you say to me, who's selling ATAs? Now that you have the reference to the site, go in and keyword search, analog terminal adapter or ATA, see what comes up. I mean, whatever you want to do with the government, you can look it up under Federal Procurement Data Service. A lot of people aren't qualified. Now, poor credit, first of all, you could be bankrupt personally and get a government contract anywhere. Has nothing to do with you unless you're a sole proprietor. If you're a company, LLC, S Corp, C Corp, whatever, it's based on the company. So those are some of the basic statistics. Any questions? I got some QR codes for you. I'm available anytime for a free consultation. It's not a sales pitch. I like the way I kind of took David out of that one. Yes?
So you talked about product. Do you also handle services, or is that different?
Well, mainly, both of them are allowed. The only one that's really easy to look up is product. Services, I did it was a company in DC called CACI. They compete with CSC, SAIC, all the big boys. I did the first services contract for IT on GSA in 1996, exactly 1 year after Al Gore invented the internet. I was there, I saw it. He wouldn't lie to us. And then the following year, he reinvented government, and that's what gave us services, which were never allowed on GSA before. And GSA started in 1949.
So how were services handled prior to that?
They weren't. That was the problem. And there was a recognized issue that, okay, I can buy these computers, but I got nobody to install them. What do I do? So they were going out open market and buying services, which is great because you could charge your full load $100 an hour, $200 an hour, whatever, and you were getting it. Then all of a sudden they said, we're spending too much money on services. So they used a lot of these big contracts you've heard of, Navy soup, and everything's an acronym. I'm not going to bore you with the acronyms. You get enough of those as in our business now, so why add some more to confusion? It's interesting, though, some of these folks that do get a GSA contract, it's General Services Administration. Been around since '49. I get the press releases. The Government Services Agency just awarded, I'm thinking, who the hell's that? It's GSA. So services are extremely important in the government now. In fact, they're trying to consolidate from all the various federal supply classes into one services module. So maybe you do regular consulting, maybe you do business development, maybe you do business process reengineering, maybe you do IT. That's 4 different contracts. They're trying to combine all that into one so you can change hats for whatever you want to do. Yes, is the answer to your question. There's contact info. Those of you who want to take a shot.
Michael, did you cover this already? What is the turnaround time from the start of the launch of the process to actual approval for GSA?
The question is, someone says, I want to start doing business with the government. How long is the process? For IT, it's relatively quick. It should be. It's IT. And we're all IT related. Unless you start getting into video surveillance using whatever the modules are that plug into Asterisk or into any of the servers. That goes into a different one under law enforcement and all the other. It's a huge one. That takes about a year. IT can go anywhere from 30 to 90 days to get a contract awarded.
Any other questions? Feel free.
So you mentioned Veneto. So they have a contract. Does that specify a particular set of items, or is it open to any?
Good question. I get a contract. Is it a specific set of items, or can I sell anything I want? The answer is yes and yes. And the reason is there's a loophole that we all know about. Veneto has the full Digium product line. Everything from SwitchVox down to the phones. Everything in between. Now, with IT, and this is something I will probably put on a slide in the future, I didn't think about it. IT, even though you can sell to the government, does anybody here sell to state, local, municipal, education, universities? If you've got a contract, they can buy directly off of it. Pricing is already negotiated. There is a gentleman here today from a college who was Veneto's first customer, and he said, we have to have this stuff on GSA before we can buy it. We got him done, and took longer than normal because the CO is getting ready to retire, and by now has retired, so it took us longer. But they're on. That college made their purchase. They're happy. They're moving forward into other stuff. They're doing a lot of swap outs. I think they took down an Avaya system. And yes, they're also providing a lot of services. Now, all of a sudden, they say, well, we want this item, and it's not on your contract. If they are placing an order for something that's on your contract, they can buy items that aren't on your contract only if they've got a contract order as what's called open market or not separately priced. So yes, that's why it's a yes, yes answer. If you just say, I want to sell this, you can't do it unless it's on the contract. But the government buyer can dictate. We get this all the time from my client in North Carolina. He says, we want you to put projectors on your contract. So we do a mod to the government. We add the projectors. The buyer buys it. That's been happening quite a bit. It's buyer-driven, as opposed before it was vendor-driven. We're the vendor. Buyer-driven works. Anybody else, please? Keep.
Follow up on that. So if Veneto has the contract for Digium phones, does that mean that if we have a contract, we would have to be matching their price? Or how
Excellent question. In the past, no. Now, kind of no. If you've got a $100 product that you're selling to the government for $80, and I've got $100, same $100 product, a phone, and I want to sell it to the government for $85. There's what's called a competitive range. Why am I charging $85 when you're charging $80? GSA is based on best value. Amazon versus pick somebody that, you order and it shows up, it's $25 shipping, it'll be there in 3 weeks. I'm Amazon Prime, I order the same product, it cost me $10 more, but I got it tomorrow, 2-day, whatever, unlimited returns. Where's the value in the two pricing? Your 80 and my 85, I might be offering free overnight shipping. I might be offering an extended warranty. Am I giving better value at 85 than you are at 80? That's what the buyer looks at and does the comparison. Hope that answers your question. Anybody else? Yes, sir. He's trying to drag me over there, Allison. I'm not going. A services like mine? You mean what we do or just services in general to the government? I'm on the edge. I'm going to fall off the stair. We're fee-based. Don't ask the next question. You can go onto the website. If you get, I'll back this up so you can get, here's the slide info, which this will all be on the slide info anyway. I'll put out a handful of cards. If anybody interested, send me an email. I will also send you back the link. It's too big just to email out, so that's why we do the link.
Any other questions for Mike? Well, thank you so much, Mike.
My pleasure, folks. Thank you.
A round of applause for Mike.
Thank you for coming.